we now know quite a bit more about the new Pariah Nexus Mission Deck. Actions, what I've been calling actions based on the 9th edition term, where you do something like cleanse. In 10th edition, it's the secondary missions that mean that you can do them and score victory points as long as you don't shoot or charge into combat. Actions are going to be changing. There are limits going to be placed on which units can complete these actions. So to complete these actions, which is now going to be an official term, your unit can't be Battleshocked. This means that Battleshock can have much more of an impact on the game. Separate to that, if your unit has objective control of 0, then you cannot complete an action. And I'm pointing out that it's separate because it isn't just that when you get Battleshocked, you go to objective control 0, but with units like the Dogmata, this adds 1 to your objective control score. And the way it's done is you set it to the new value of 0 and then you add 1. So a Battle Sisters unit with a Dogmata would have objective control 1 and still be Battleshocked. This means that as they're Battleshocked, they can't complete actions. The objective control 0 units not being able to complete actions means that things like Spore Mines that were a go-to for Tyranid players will not be able to complete these missions. And the new Chaos Spawn, they've been set at objective control 0 in the Chaos Space Marine Codex. The July points changes balance data slate will also be coming much sooner than July, and provide reduced point costs for these units to compensate them for their lack of ability to do secondary missions. If Games Workshop remembers to also reduce the points on the Biovore, that is currently unknown, because the Biovore is used in a lot of competitive Tyranid army lists to throw out Spore Mines that then complete these secondary actions. They're not going to be able to do that anymore. Battleline units are also expected to go up in cost as they're relied on for this mission deck to work, and you score more points by having them included. I really hope that there's some careful measuring done for which ones are targeted and how hard they're targeted. The Sisters of Battle have only the Sisters of Battle as their Battleline unit, so we have no choices. We can't go for a cheaper version because this is our only Battleline unit. Aside from picking Imperial Agents, some of which have the Battleline keyword. So points going up on the regular Battle Sisters would suck for us. In the Genestealer Cult army, the Neophytes and Acolytes are already expensive for a 1 wound 5+ save model. And Deathwatch players may want to look to Assault Intercessors to back up their kill teams, rather than the already very expensive Deathwatch veterans. I think that all of this, the Meta Watch, the points update, and the rules changes has been brought forward to get it out of the way of Age of Sigmar 4th edition, so the Games Workshop can focus as much of their online advertising as possible towards that set. That is also why they pushed the Genestealer Cult and Sisters of Battle out early and on the same weekend. Now, these actions. It still does allow actions to be done by vehicle, so we're not going back to the 9th edition version of it having to be a unit with at least 5 models in order to perform the actions. But the change so that Battleshocked units can complete actions, that is really good for detachments like the Chaos Space Marine Night Lords Dread Talon and the Chaos Knights in general. They are going to be more effective at stopping the enemy from scoring secondary objectives. Battleshock can mean something more, because right now it's like I could put a marker next to them, but it's not going to mean anything, so we'll just forget about it for the moment. They're going to automatically pass in the next turn. And any ability like the Patriarchs where you can cause Battleshock, that goes up in value, hopefully not up in points, if it also means that you stop enemies from completing missions. Good. Those are kind of abilities have just been tacked on. It's like, oh, I'm not going to bother doing it. Or, you know, opponent, were you planning on using a command point on this unit this turn? If not, don't even bother rolling the Battleshock test. So that can be something that's positive. Other changes to the way actions work are that pistols that let you shoot well in combat now don't allow actions to complete secondary missions. Units that use assault weapons and perhaps rules or detachments that allow you to advance and still shoot will not be able to perform actions. Actions are getting defined as a thing and are no longer something done by units eligible to shoot, even when units with no guns were eligible to shoot. So this is an okay change as long as we don't go full 9th edition. I still expect to see a lot of small Battleline units, like units of 10 Neophytes instead of all being at the maximum 20 size, to complete these actions and score secondary missions in this Battleline focused mission deck. Some of the missions and mission rules had an exception for Battleline units. So in one mission, name unknown, Battleline units will get to advance and still be able to perform actions. In another mission, Battleline units can perform actions while in combat. I don't think this will allow you to charge and then still complete an action, as I think charging will prevent that, but I would assume it means you can be locked in combat, choose not to fall back, and the Battleline unit can still complete the action. If they live. A second part of that card lets you shoot and do an action with your Battleline units. There are mission cards that let Battleline units come from reserves in turn 1, and we have seen a mission rule that lets you score a few extra victory points for Battleline units on objectives. They want you to take Battleline units. So I am liking detachments that focus on Battleline units. For Imperial Knights and Titanic units, I guess also Baneblade variants, they can still shoot and complete an action. You still can't charge and complete an action. So Imperial Knights and Chaos Knights are not having to pull in lots of allies from Imperial Agents or Chaos Demons to make their list work. But despite this change, I don't expect Big Knights to see a lot more play, and I still think you'll want cheap Imperial Agent units to be doing these missions for you. The value of a Knight is their ability to kill, to tie up the enemy and remain undestroyed. The secondary actions or even primary missions were not what people had in mind for the larger Knights anyway. Again, we see Games Workshop struggle to fit the Knights into a rule set that's only been adapted a bit at a time across the last half dozen editions. The rules are designed for like 2 platoons worth of infantry with supporting vehicles as a basic army. The existence of Titanic vehicles in a rule set like that makes it difficult. There's going to be some minor deployment rules changes, so some of the deployment cards will be a bit different, so that they're not unusual in measurements. I didn't think it was too bad, but if it makes games a bit easier, I'm all for it. The primary missions are mostly the same. Sites of Power is changed a bit by not having a focus on characters. If you had very few characters and were drawing a random mission, you could lose the game by not having come with the right kind of army list. Now the mission has been changed to be a bit more general. I don't think it will now be about Battleline units. Not everything in this mission pack is about Battleline units, but they do feature prominently. We've also had an admission from Games Workshop that Gambits were a failure. They were a bit random, and they were just far too hard to complete. I know you weren't using them. Secret missions are better. They're only for the person with lower victory points at the end of Battle Round 3, and they get to pick one. No random drawing. There are 4 missions, and you get to choose which one you want to complete. Because there are only 4 missions, it also means that your opponent will be able to guess what mission you've gone for. We also know that one of these missions requires you to have your Warlord controlling the enemy objective in their deployment zone. Finally, Warlords mean something. They've been compulsory, but they generally haven't meant anything for all of 10th edition so far. And also a separate one for you to control 3 not in your deployment zone objectives. That is something that would not be possible with the current supply drop mission. So either that mission will be reworked, or don't pick the secret mission that requires you to do that if you're playing supply drop. The mission rule Chilling Rain is gone. Now this was a mission rule that meant that there was no mission rule. You know, you can just choose not to play certain rules. You are playing the game, and there are loads of rules, so you can decide with your opponent which one you want to do. You didn't need permission from Games Workshop to not do a mission rule if you didn't want one. If Games Workshop thinks this is the first time that we've been ignoring their rules, they should think again. The new points cost and meta watch and things and the rules dataslate are rapidly approaching. Included in that is a rework to the Adeptus Mechanicus. I'm less interested in the AdMech faction changes, as we know that there is no bladed cog Genestealer Cult detachment, though we could very easily make our own. Just follow the Brood Brothers Auxilia detachment and change any Astra Militarum keywords to Adeptus Mechanicus. So you could return underneath an Adeptus Mechanicus tank, have an AdMech infantry unit come back, just ignore the existence of the regimental keyword. And you could do something very similar for Tyranids, because we're not allowed to have Tyranids and Genestealer Cult in the same army in this edition. At least, if you follow the rules Games Workshop has given us. But the AdMech are getting, in quotation marks, significant rules changes. This is why buying codexes have massively diminishing returns. They may not even last an edition. So let me know if you're still planning on buying the Genestealer Cult and Battle Sisters codexes. Oh yes, and we're gonna have an FAQ. Finally! Good! After more than a year, they actually plan to do an FAQ. They've been wondering, oh, we keep getting these questions, and these questions are frequently asked. Maybe if we answer them, then they will stop. There will be an FAQ for the main rules, and an FAQ for each of the armies. This is in addition to the current rules commentary, which has some sort of FAQ, as well as the errata that they throw out after a new codex is released to say, oh yeah, these are like 2 different things that are wrong. Until that arrives, this here is the best answer we have to if Genestealer Cult Acolytes get their demo charges back after dying and coming back through the cult ambush, or returning via cult icon. My darlings and viewers, you will see me again soon. Have a great day of 40k.